Welcome to our Summer at Your Library program. Please be advised that this program will be recorded and posted on YouTube on demand until August 7th. For your information, audio and video of participants are disabled, and please send your questions and comments to Q&A area at the bottom of your screen. Fresno County Public Library connects the community and provides meaningful programs to grow and to be inspired. Today, Mr. Steve Darnell, radio host and publisher of Nostalgia Digest, will present a program on Golden Age of Radio. He has presented his show to many public libraries and senior centers throughout the country. I'm honored and delighted that Mr. Darnell has accepted our invitation and is joining us from Chicago. It is said that you may be able to relive the past, but every so often it is nice to revisit it. Please take it away, Steve.
Thank you very much, Mina, and good evening to everyone, wherever you are. It is a real pleasure for me to be here in association with the Fresno Library. This last year, as Mina said, I've gotten to speak virtually with libraries all over the country, and I'm just routinely impressed with everything they've done in response to the pandemic to reach out to their communities. It's just been amazing to witness, even on the periphery as I have been. And to deviate for a moment, they do all this with an infinitesimal amount of a tax dollar. So please support public libraries any chance you get. And if you meet someone who does not share this philosophy, I urge you to view them with great suspicion and mistrust. They will have earned that. Some of you may know that I have the amazing good fortune every week to host a radio show dedicated to the early years of radio. And that means we get to present comedy shows and dramatic programs and mysteries and sometimes news broadcasts. But at the heart of almost everything we do is music. And that's perfectly appropriate because radio as we know it has existed for just over 100 years. And music was a part of it almost from the very, very beginning. You know, when the first radio stations went on the air in the early 1920s, they didn't really have a plan except to be on the air. And over time, the idea was if you could somehow convince people of a reason to do so, they would buy a radio and tune into your station. But in fact, in those days, a lot of people who went on to become very important figures in radio told variations on the same story, that they went to a radio station. Maybe they were looking for work. Maybe they were just curious about the inner workings of this box that pulled sound out of the air. Many of them, upon arriving at the radio station, were asked, "Do you play the piano?" Some of them said yes, and moments later, they were on the radio playing the piano. And a lot of folks who became very famous in radio started out as musicians. Freeman Gosden and Charles Correll were on the air here in Chicago at WEBH in the Edgewater Beach Hotel, playing piano and singing songs before they became famous as Amos and Andy. Jim and Marion Jordan were doing the same thing at WIBO here in Chicago before they became famous as Fibber McGee and Molly. Of course, as time went on, radio got a little less spontaneous, a little more organized, particularly with the dawn of the radio networks, the National Broadcasting Company, the Columbia Broadcasting System, the Mutual Broadcasting System. But even at its most structured, it was an incredibly creative time. You know, some people call it the golden age of radio. And certainly it was a golden age of music both in terms of the songs people sang, but also the people who sang them.
Has anybody got a match? Thanks. Now I can light an old gold and listen to Frank Sinatra. Night and day, you are the one, only you neath the moon under the sun.
When the blue of the night meets the gold of the day, someone waits for me.
Ken Carpenter welcoming you to Philco Radio Time, produced and transcribed in Hollywood with John Scott Trotter, his orchestra and chorus. And now here's song singer Bing Crosby.
Bird's Eye Frosted Foods present Bird's Eye Open House, starring Dinah Shore with her special guest, Andy Russell. And now here's Dinah.
Put your arms around me, honey. Hold me tight. Smoke dreams from smoke rings while a Chesterfield bird.
Tonight, from the Chesterfield Supper Club in New York, here's our star, Perry Como.
Thank you very much.
You sigh, the song begins, and I hear violins. It's magic.
Yes, from Columbia Square in Hollywood, here's Warner Brothers' lovely singing star, Doris Day.
Wait a minute, folks. You ain't heard nothing yet.
This is the Kraft Music Hall, starring Al Jolson, with Oscar Levant, Lou Bring and his orchestra and chorus, and our guest, Bing Crosby.
So keep on looking for a bluebird and listening for its song. Whenever April shower come along.
Well, radio had some great, even legendary singers, and there are more where these folks came from. But this evening, we're going to concentrate a little more on some of the people who wrote the songs that these people sang. These songs were part of a body of work that we refer to as the Great American Songbook. It's kind of an amorphous term, but there's no denying a lot of the selections in that book were popularized during the radio era. In fact, radio was one of a number of factors that helped to shape this body of work. Well, now I don't know. I know it's possible to put up a show of hands, figuratively speaking, but you don't have to do that. I'll just say this. 100 years plus years ago, no one had a radio. There was no radio to be had. There was no television, no internet, no cellular phones. Not everyone had phones. Records were in their infancy. They were expensive. They broke easily. And so at the start of the 20th century, the only way most of us could listen to music was by standing next to someone else who was playing an instrument. And in that environment, people bought pianos, people bought violins, clarinets, guitars, any other musical instrument for the purpose of entertaining themselves and their friends. And in that environment, the songwriters and song publishers gauged a song's popularity entirely on the sale of sheet music. Song publishers would distribute sheet music to music stores across the country, and many of those stores would actually have a live piano player on hand for anybody who wanted to hear a few bars of Thanks for the Lobster. Obviously, it didn't always turn a song into a hit, but there were certainly songs from the early 20th century that became hits, and some, dare I say it, that we could still probably sing a little of if we were asked to, like In My Merry Oldsmobile, or Wait Till the Sun Shines Nellie, or Take Me Out to the Ball Game. Well, when radio came around in the 1920s, it changed the way that songs could be heard. And as a result, it changed the way that songs could be sold. Now, someone like me could stand at a microphone in Chicago and be heard in California. And thanks to the radio networks, while I was being heard in California, I could also be heard in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Fort Wayne, Indiana, and New York City. Now, suddenly, all of us who didn't have a piano or a guitar could listen to music being played by total strangers. And over time, as methods of distribution improved, you could use the national exposure of radio to sell records or sheet music. See, now you've written a song that gets sung by Frank Sinatra on a coast-to-coast radio show. That is a level of exposure that Thanks for the Lobster never enjoyed. So obviously for a songwriter, radio was rife with commercial possibilities. And as a frustrated musician named Jack Benny knew, songwriting was rife with comedic possibilities.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, in honor of Don Wilson's 15th radio birthday, I will play a song that will soon be sweeping the nation. Thanks for the Memory. Hit it, Phil.
Okay.
Wait a minute. See who that is, Mary.
Oh, Jack, it's Leo, Robin, and Ralph Ranger.
Oh, Leo and Ralph. Hello, fellas.
Hello, Jack.
Well, boys, you couldn't have picked a better time to drop in. I was just about to play your new song, Thanks for the Memory.
Yeah, we heard you announce it last week. And we thought we'd come over.
Oh, that's nice. That's awfully nice.
Say, Jack, we'd like to talk to you for a minute. Do you mind?
No. What is it, fellas?
If it's okay with you, we'd like to talk to you alone.
Oh, certainly. Mary, do you mind stepping out for a minute? You too, Kenny and Don.
Okay, sure. We'll take care.
You want me to go too, Jack?
No, you stay here, Phil. After all, there are two of them. All right, boys. What's on your mind?
Well, Jack, I don't know how to start
Let
this.
me handle this, Ralph.
My goodness, what's all this fuss about?
You know, Jack, we wrote Thanks for the Memory just a short time ago. It's fairly well known now, but it hasn't reached the peak of its popularity yet.
Well, if there's anything I can do, boys, I'll...
That song means more to us than anything we've ever written.
Well, I appreciate that.
And we wouldn't want anything to happen that would stunt its growth.
Stunt its growth? Well, I'm not going to smoke when I play it, fellas. Now, come on, just what are you driving at?
Well,
Well, what? Come on, get down to brass tacks.
all right. How much do you want not to play Thanks for the Memory?
What?
We'll give you $200.
Oh, trying to offer me money, eh? Do you boys remember what I did for your other song, Love and Bloom?
Yeah, I wish we had money then.
Well, the fact is, Leo, Robin, and Ralph Ranger were perfectly happy with Jack Benny adopting one of their songs as his theme every week. As we mentioned, there were certainly songs and songwriters that had been popular in the years before radio became a reality. Some of these folks are lost to the sands of time. Some managed to hang around, like Irving Berlin. Irving Berlin was writing songs almost from the time he could write, but certainly by the teens, he had already established himself with songs like Alexander's Ragtime Band, Mandy, A Pretty Girl is Like a Melody, and for a show that I guarantee none of you have ever seen, called Yip Yip Ya Fank, Irving Berlin wrote the melody for what would become God Bless America. Then he wrote for the Broadway stage. He wrote Blue Skies and Heat Wave and I'll Be Loving You Always and Easter Parade. And if we stopped right there, you'd be looking at a giant in American music. But then he wrote for the movies, and he wrote Cheek to Cheek and Puttin' on the Ritz. And in 1937, Irving Berlin wrote what many people considered to be the quintessential wintertime song called I've Got My Love to Keep Me Warm. Then, of course, 5 years later, he wrote the actual quintessential wintertime song, White Christmas. Ironically, he wrote it in Los Angeles in July, when all you could do was dream of a white Christmas because you weren't going to get one in July in California. Now, in 1946, Irving Berlin was approached about writing the songs for a new Broadway show, and he hesitated. For one thing, he was not the producer's original choice. And this was not a case of Irving Berlin's pride being wounded. Their first choice was a very talented fellow named Jerome Kern. But Jerome Kern had died very suddenly. And Irving Berlin admired Jerome Kern, thought he was a great songwriter, and he did not want to step in and do anything that would besmirch the memory of Jerome Kern. But finally, he told the producers, give me a weekend, and I'll see what I can come up with. So he went to Coney Island, had his famous piano put in the room. This is the piano, for those of you who don't know. Irving Berlin could only play the black keys on the piano. For some reason, that was how he wrote all his songs. But his piano had a special switch on it that would allow him to transpose everything that he played on the black keys into major keys. And that weekend, on that piano, Irving Berlin wrote 3 songs, including There's No Business Like Show Business. Now, you get songs like that. You get Ethel Merman to star. And you have a show called Annie, Get Your Gun. It was a tremendous success. And as a result, Irving Berlin's stock was absolutely soaring when he and Al Jolson made this appearance on Bing Crosby's Philco Radio Time.
And now to present a man whose songs have done all right by me, and everybody else, I guess, who has done them. I can think of only 2 words to introduce our foremost writer of popular songs, and 2 words, Irving Berlin.
Thank you very much, Bing. It's nice being on your program for the first time. I must say you have a very easygoing and casual show.
Well, we got to be casual. The script isn't written yet, Irving. Irving, how about you singing something for us?
Well, Bing, I don't sing very well. As a matter of fact, I don't think I can sing at all.
Oh, Jolson's going to love you. I remember, and This Is the Army, you sang a song. How about doing that old tune of yours that you did in that show? How I hate to get up in the morning.
All right, I'll take a shot at it.
Oh, you're sent. John Scott, give Mr. Berlin a little of your expert musical background, huh?
Sure.
Sustain him in his hour of travail.
Oh, how I hate to get up in the morning. Oh, how I'd love to remain in bed. For the hardest blow of all is to hear the bugler call. You gotta get up, you gotta get up, gotta get up this morning. Someday I'm going to murder the bugler. Someday they're going to find him dead. And then I'll get that other pup, the guy who wakes the bugler up, and spend the rest of my life in bed. Bing, huh? We'll never be able to follow that.
I ain't gonna try. I don't know what to do.
Well, of course, Irving Berlin was not the only songwriter who wrote for the stage. And a lot of songs that we might consider to be part of the Great American Songbook have their roots in the theater. Songs like Anything Goes, Begin the Begin, Let's Do It. It Was Just One of Those Things, I Get a Kick Out of You. Now, all those songs actually have something in common in that they were all written by one man. He was born and raised in Indiana, but he was not a stereotypical Hoosier farm boy. He was a cosmopolitan city boy through and through. He was a great songwriter, and those titles prove. He was a great lyricist, as we will prove. And he was a pretty good singer, as he will prove. On the clip you're about to hear from 1935's Flashman Yeast Hour, hosted by a gentleman who was also pretty well known as a singer around this time, Rudy Valley.
From 50 million Frenchmen to the gay divorcee, the words, music, and lyrics by Cole Porter have appeared on many a theater program and many a hit song. His original melodies and his literate rhymes have, year after year, kept him close to the top position among popular composers. Right now, he's at the top. The reason? His sensationally brilliant score for Anything Goes, the show that has taken this show-crowded town by storm and placed Cole Porter squarely in the Broadway spotlight. He's here tonight in person to sing for us one song from the show, a number that perhaps represents his finest work to date. Mr. Cole Porter singing, You're the Top.
I'm going to interrupt for just a moment. Rudy Valley was saying that this song, You're the Top, might represent Cole Porter's finest work to date. Now, obviously, we have 86 years of hindsight in which to offer a judgment. And I can honestly say, I think this is one of the greatest lyrics of the 20th century. And I'm not just going to claim that, I'm going to show you. And I know that all of you are muted. You know, I know it's probably very tempting to want to sing along to some of these songs that you know, and I encourage that. And if you're a little bit shy, don't be, because you're muted. No one will pass judgment on your singing. If you decide tonight is the night that you would like to sing along with Cole Porter, and to make it easy, we'll show you the lyrics and you can sing along.
Words poetic, I'm so pathetic that I always have found it best, instead of getting them off my chest, to let them rest unexpressed. I hate parading my serenading, as I probably miss a ball. But if this city is not so pretty, at least it'll tell you how great you are. You're the top, you're the Colosseum, you're the top, you're the Louvre Museum, you're the melody from a symphony by Strauss, you're a Bendel bonnet, a Shakespeare sonnet, you're Mickey Mouse, you're the Nile, you're the Tower of Pisa, you're the smile on the Mona Lisa. I'm a worthless check, a total wreck, a flop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top. You're the top. You're Mahatma Gandhi. You're the top. You're Napoleon Brandy. You're the purple light of a summer night in Spain. You're the National Gallery, your Garbo's salary, your cellophane. You're sublime. You're a turkey dinner. You're the time of the Derby winner. I'm a toy balloon that's fated doomed to pop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top.
Very nice. And if you were still a little shy while singing along, you have another chance.
You're the top. You're an arrow collar. You're the top. You're a Coolidge dollar. You're the nimble tread of the feet of Fred Astaire. You're an O'Neill drama. You're Whistler's mama. You're Camembert. You're a rose. You're Inferno's Dante. You're the nose of the great Durante. I'm a lazy lout that's just about to stop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top. You're the top. You're the Swanee River. You're the top. You're a goose's liver. You're the boy who dares challenge Mrs. Bear's son Max. You're the Russian ballet. You're Rudy Ballet. You're Pheno Lax. You're romance. You're the steps of Russia. You're the pants on a Roxy usher. I'm just in the way, as the French would say, de trop. But if, baby, I'm the bottom, you're the top.
Well, I will trust in anyone who decides they'd like to put something in the Q&A function here in Zoom. Feel free to let me know which one of you sang the best, and I'll take your word for it. I do want to say something. I was giving this talk in person at the library a couple of years ago, and after You're the Top, there was a woman who I think thought she was whispering to the people next to her, and she said, "That song has a lot of verses." And it does. And he left out 5 of them. But they're all brilliant. I mean, I did not come of age in the golden age of radio. I missed that by a little ways. But when I was growing up, it wasn't unheard of for high school English classes and college English classes to include music lyrics in their curriculum, in the idea that songwriters like Bob Dylan and Paul Simon and Lennon and McCartney were doing something poetic with their lyrics. But those lyrics are genuine poetry. And in terms of meter and rhyme and structure, they're, to my knowledge, to my way of thinking, they're virtually unsurpassed in 20th century music. Now, most Broadway shows in the early days were presented in the style of revues. You know, the most famous instance being the Ziegfeld Follies, where you'd get a dancer like Fred Astaire or Bill Robinson, you'd get a comedian like Will Rogers or W.C. Fields, you'd get a singer like Marilyn Miller, and they wouldn't necessarily have a lot of interaction, but they were all stupendous talents, and you put them all in one show and you're going to have a stupendous show. There were certainly efforts to create Broadway musicals where all of the elements came together in service of a single story. And certainly it's a tradition that goes back to Gilbert and Sullivan, but one of the earliest on Broadway was Showboat by Jerome Kern, which gave us Old Man River and Make Believe and Can't Help Loving That Man. And then in 1943, 2 gentlemen teamed up for a show where every element, the singing, the dancing, the dialogue, would work in service of a story. That show was Oklahoma. It was a huge hit on Broadway. It ran for half a decade. Well, you're about to hear from the gentleman who wrote the score to that show, introduced by someone who I think will be well known to fans of Broadway musicals, Miss Mary Martin.
The stage is set, our curtain is up, and here is our star, lovely Mary Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Lytell. The most exciting news for the canteen tonight is that we've been able to persuade 2 very distinguished busboys to drop their duties and come up here and tell us something about their wonderful show. The composer and the librettist of Oklahoma, Mr. Richard Rogers and Mr. Oscar Hammerstein. Dick, I understand that the first thing that is said of the collaborators who come up with a great hit is that they were lucky. Is that true?
Well, Mary, I think that's the kindest thing.
How about you, Oscar?
Well, I think we were lucky to have Ruben Mamoulian's fine direction and those scenic designs of Lemaire's, and Miles White's costumes, and Mr. Mills' direction of the dancers.
Oh, I keep thinking about your wonderful lyrics, Oscar, and of Dick's beautiful score.
We were hoping she'd say that, weren't we, Oscar?
I wouldn't dream of interrupting her. You've got to give a pretty girl a head.
How did Oklahoma manage to get born?
Well, it was an idea of the Theater Guild. they remembered a play by Lynn Riggs, which the Guild had done, called Green Grow the Lilacs.
Yeah.
They felt they were the makings in it of a great musical play.
Dick and I were called in and took the idea from there. It was summer. It was hot. But we were determined men. After spending week after week stewing and fretting and struggling, we sat down one day and added up our progress and realized we had finished one song.
Which song was that?
The song sets the mood for the entire production. It's called Oh, What a Beautiful Morning.
There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. There's a bright golden haze on the meadow. The corn is as high as an elephant's eye, and it looks like it's climbing clear up to the sky. Oh, what a beautiful morning. Oh, what a beautiful day. I got a beautiful feeling. Everything's going my way.
Now, one of the things I love about discovering these shows and getting to share these shows with people is that in the 21st century, it's almost like a form of inexpensive time travel. You know, that for 2 minutes just now, we were back in 1943 with Richard Rodgers and Oscar Hammerstein when they had written one show together. They don't know something we know, which is that they're going to go on to write Carousel and South Pacific and The Sound of Music and The King and I. They're going to go on to change American musical theater forever. And they still in 1943 have that journey ahead of them. How exciting that must have been. Now, we've talked about shows that were written for the stage, but of course, something else happened with the dawn of radio. The movies were beginning to talk. And where there was talking, there was going to be singing. And of course, the first talking picture in the United States, as we know it, was The Jazz Singer, as starring Al Jolson. You better believe there was music in that. And of course, there were also musical films over the years like 42nd Street and Footlight Parade and Singin' in the Rain and Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Well, there was a gentleman who had a hand in the latter. He had a hand in a lot of classic songs. He actually went to Hollywood because he dreamt about being an actor. He settled for being a singer, but he ended up having a hand in more than 1,000 songs, collaborating with the likes of Duke Ellington, Harold Arlen, Hoagy Carmichael, and Henry Mancini. Here he is on the radio in 1944, Armed Forces Radio to be exact, introduced by a woman who is probably well known to a lot of fans of both Broadway musicals and Hollywood musicals, Miss Irene Dunn.
As you all know, the barometer that indicates the American taste in songs is the hit parade. Well, we're just about to meet the fellow who holds the enviable record of having had 8 songs in the top spots, the #1 hit spot in the week. Now, if you haven't already guessed who I'm referring to, it's Johnny Mercer. Welcome to this Tin Pan Alley clam bake, Johnny.
Thank you, Irene. Glad to be here.
Johnny, get out your atomizer and spray your throat because we're going to call on you to sing one of your songs.
Well, gee, I knew my voice would make me a social success someday. You know, before I learned to sing, I was a wallflower. Just a total washout.
You don't mean it, really?
Yes, nobody invited me anyplace. But just last night, I sang at a party, and 2 fellas invited me out in the alley.
Oh, Johnny, I think you've got a cute voice.
Oh, I guess it's all right, but it's always cracking.
Oh, well, everybody's voice cracks once in a while.
Yeah, but with me, when I sing shortening bread, it comes out crumbs. You can take it. I can try and dish it out, Irene.
Well, Johnny, Command Performance has received requests for everything from that old Black Magic and Dearly Beloved to G.I. Jive and Accentuate the Positive. But the one that the fellas always ask for most is that blues classic, the one you wrote with Harold Arlen, Blues in the Night.
My mama done told me when I was in knee pants. My mama done told me, son, a woman will sweet talk and she'll give you the big eye. But when the sweet talking's done, a woman's a two-faced, a worrisome thing who'll leave you to sing the blues in the night.
Now, earlier we were talking about the fact that the dawn of radio coincided with a number of different factors: the emergence of Broadway as a theatrical mecca, the dawn of the movie musical in Hollywood. But there was another very important development taking place during this time. A generation of musicians had fallen in love with a new American musical idiom known as jazz. They had joined forces. They had increased their ranks to create big bands that would play this hybrid of music called swing. And in fact, the big bands of the swing era had a lot to do with the Great American Songbook as well. I mean, Cole Porter wrote Begin the Beguine, but Artie Shaw made it a hit. And a lot of songs that we might put in the Great American Songbook are there because they're associated with the big bands, like Count Basie's theme, The 1 O'Clock Jump, or Tommy Dorsey's theme, I'm Getting Sentimental Over You. And, you know, let's face it, when we think of Chattanooga Choo Choo, or Pennsylvania 6-5000, or In the Mood, or String of Pearls, you think of Glenn Miller. He's the band leader and led the band that made those songs famous. Well, radio responded to this emerging jump and swing movement, sometimes with primetime sponsored radio shows, but more frequently with live late night broadcasts from the nation's night spots. You know, it might be the Hollywood Palladium out west, or the Aragon or the Trianon ballrooms here in Chicago, or the Manhattan Room, or the Café Rouge in New York. Now, the night spots loved it, of course, because they would get mentioned on the air. The radio stations loved it because all they had to do was send over an announcer who was already on staff anyway to introduce each song. They didn't have to pay any artists. They didn't have to pay any writers or actors. That was great for them. This was like found programming. And the bands loved it because as they made their way across the country, they used radio as a way of introducing themselves. You know, if you're Benny Goodman's band, for instance, and you play the Hollywood Palladium in Los Angeles for 2 weeks and it's broadcast over the radio, well, that just means when you get to Las Vegas, or Reno, or Phoenix, Arizona, those people already know who you are because they heard you on the radio. One of the great songwriters to emerge from the swing era, the jazz age, was in fact one of the great composers of the 20th century. I mean, a short list of his songs includes, Caravan, Take the A Train, Don't Get Around Much Anymore, Do Nothing Till You Hear From Me, Mood Indigo. Well, here he is on the radio in 1937 on a show called the Saturday Night Swing Club. And to show you just how much musicians valued radio as a promotional tool, you're going to hear the announcer, Paul Douglas, explain that this man left a job to appear on the radio. And if you listen carefully, you'll hear where that job was. And I imagine you will be as envious as I was.
Our session opens in a big way by presenting as our first guest a great personality in the modern music world. Composer, arranger, pianist, Duke Ellington. I want you to know, come on. Thank you very much. Duke, I got a few things I want to say right from the heart and the shoulder. You're a favorite and a charter member of the Saturday Night Swing Club, and we're mighty proud and pleased to be able to have you dash over from the Cotton Club and bring trumpeter Cootie Williams, clarinetist Barney Bigard, saxophonist Harry Carney, and Juan Tizol with that. What's that he plays? I never.
A valve trombone.
Well, now, when you put them all together, what are you going to play?
We're going to play
Frolic Sam.
Frolic Sam?
Frolic Sam.
Sounds good to me, and I'm sure it suits everybody here. Duke, we're off.
Okay.
Now, we've heard from some amazing and talented and versatile songwriters who've contributed a lot to the fabric of American music. But in any field of endeavor, you know, there are those who for one reason or another are in a crowd of one, a class of their own. And where songwriting is concerned, George Gershwin was definitely one of those. I mean, he wrote a lot of very popular songs. A short list would include I've Got a Crush on You, Someone to Watch Over Me, Fascinating Rhythm, Nice Work If You Can Get It. But he did more than write popular songs. He also made an effort to bring jazz into the world of opera with Porgy and Bess, which gave us Summertime and Bess, You Is My Woman and My Man's Gone Now. And of course, he brought jazz from the nightclub into the concert hall with the Rhapsody in Blue. Now, all of us have heard the music of George Gershwin, but I'm willing to bet comparatively few of us have heard George Gershwin. Tonight, that's going to change. What we have for you now is an excerpt from a short-lived program from 1934 called Music by Gershwin. Now, sonically, it is perhaps not everything we would like it to be, but it is, to the best of our knowledge, one of the few surviving recordings from a show that is now 87 years old. And on this program, George Gershwin is introduced by announcer Don Wilson, and in turn, he introduces one of his songs.
It is now the great privilege of Sphena-Ment to introduce this vital, interesting personality, Mr. George Gershwin.
Good evening. Don Wilson said that these programs were to be intimate reviews of modern music. I'm afraid that's a rather large order. Personally, I should have felt safer if he had said that the programs were to be informal, for that is certainly what my part of them will be. I want you to feel as though you had simply dropped in at my house or I at yours to run over a few tunes that may have given us pleasure. Now I'd like to tell you the inside story of the tune we're using as a radio signature. It's called The Man I Love, and you may have recognized it at the opening of the program. This tune was written 10 years ago, and about this time we did a musical comedy, Lady Be Good, featuring those delightful performers, Fred and Adele Astaire. Imagine my discomfort when the tune received such a lukewarm reception in Lady Be Good that we felt obliged to take it from the play. But my spirits rose shortly after this when Lady Mountbatten asked me for a copy of the song to take back to England. Soon Lady Mountbatten's favorite dance band, the Berkeley Square Orchestra, was playing The Man I Love. It wasn't long before all the dance bands in London had taken up The Man I Love. Strangely enough, I now had a London song hit on my hands without being able to sell a single copy. But I now felt The Man I Love was worthy of a place in any score I might write. So in 1927, when we brought out the first version of the musical comedy Strike Up the Band, this melody was again introduced. And again the melody met with scant success. Apparently, The Man I Love just lacked that thing so far as the theater presentation was concerned. However, its out of the theater popularity continued to grow, and after considerable success in London and Paris, The Man I Love was sung in New York by an artist who has been almost directly responsible for its American success. I refer to that remarkable personality, Helen Morgan. So now I am going to ask Mr. Katzman and the orchestra to play this number for you, and if nobody minds, I shall attempt the piano part myself.
Okay, I'm interrupting just for a moment. For those of you who aren't familiar with how radio shows were produced during this time, George Gershwin is reading from a script. Everyone in radio read from a script. You know, you'd partly because, unlike television or the stage or the movies, you know, we couldn't see if you'd memorized anything. So given that you were live on a coast-to-coast radio show, you might as well have the words you're going to say right in front of you. That said, somebody thought it was necessary to put in George Gershwin's mouth the words If no one minds, I shall play the piano. Does anyone mind George Gershwin playing the piano? I somehow don't think so. But this is what it sounds like. Now, when people ask you what you did this evening, you can tell them I sang along with Cole Porter and I heard George Gershwin play the piano. Pretty beautiful stuff. As many of you know, George Gershwin left us far too soon. He was 38 when he died in 1937. He left behind a legion of friends and admirers, including a musician named Oscar Levant, who became famous in later years for his concert renditions of the Rhapsody in Blue. Now, for a time, Oscar Levant appeared in support of Al Jolson on the Kraft Music Hall program. At the very beginning of this presentation, you heard the opening of a Kraft Music Hall program with Al and Oscar Levant and their guest, Bing Crosby. Well, now you're going to hear Oscar, Al, and Bing honor their friend for the next 4 minutes or so on the 1947 Kraft Music Hall.
You know, I could have been a singer. Really? But I came from a very poor family. I couldn't afford tonsils. How'd you get hold of a piano? My brother was a pickpocket.
Oscar, honestly, you ought to be glad you took a piano. Otherwise, you might never have known George Gershwin.
You're right, Al. George was an inspiration to many of us.
Well, I guess we all benefited by knowing George. Oscar by playing the Rhapsody in Blue, the Concerto, and Preludes. And Bing, you and I still have the privilege of singing his great songs.
Well, let's warm up Oscar and get after him, huh?
Deep in my heart, that melody will always linger.
Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. The folks up north won't see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore.
Someday he'll come along, the man I love, and he'll be good and strong, the man I love. And when he comes my way, I'll do my best to make him stay.
Oh, sweet and lovely lady, be good. Oh, lady, be good to me.
Somebody loves me, I wonder who. Maybe it's you.
Embrace me, my sweet embraceable you. Embrace me, my irreplaceable irreplaceable you.
I got rhythm, I got music, I got my gal who could ask for anything more. I got my gal who could ask for anything more. Who could ask for anything more?
It ain't necessarily so. Well, it ain't necessarily so. The things that your preacher is liable to teach you, well, it ain't necessarily so. It ain't necessarily so.
Roll out, let the trumpet call, while the people shout,
strike up the band,
hear the cymbals ring,
calling one and all,
to the martial swing,
strike up the band.
There is work to be done, to be done.
There's a war to be won, to be won.
Come, you son of a gun.
Take your stand.
Falling like a bow.
Come along, let's go.
Hey, leader, strike up the band.
Well, it was an amazing time for radio, an amazing time for music. Now, in just a little bit, I know we're going to be taking questions for anyone who has one to just use the Q&A button there. But before we do, there's one thing we haven't talked about. And so I'd like to bring things to a close here with a word from our sponsor. I know you thought you were getting out of here scot-free, didn't you? No. Well, as I mentioned at the outset, I have the great good fortune to host a radio show every week dedicated to this period. It's called Those Were the Days. That's our logo right back there. It's heard, well, in the Chicago area, it's heard Saturday afternoons from 1 to 5. If you're in California, that would start us at 11 a.m. and run until 3 p.m. But tomorrow we'll be sharing, we'll actually have a program called Melody and Madness with Robert Benchley and Artie Shaw. We'll hear Fibber McGee. We'll hear Orson Welles on the Campbell Playhouse. We'll hear a production of The Green Hornet. We'll also hear isolated episodes of a long-running children's adventure show, Buck Rogers in the 25th Century, and a long-running soap opera, The Romance of Helen Trent. So I hope you can join us. If you're in California, the only way to do so is to stream it through the internet, and you can do that live at wdcb.org. And then, my gosh, actually, and I want to let you know too that in 2 weeks, on the 26th of June, we're going to feature an afternoon of radio from the late 1920s and early 30s. So there'll be a fair amount of music. There will also be some genuinely historic recordings, like NBC's coverage of Charles Lindbergh's arrival in Washington, D.C. after his cross-Atlantic flight. Now, you can see the entire schedule for our radio show in our magazine, the Nostalgia Digest. This is one Mina was referring to. This is the new issue right here for summer with Ernie Kovacs on the cover. Inside, there's the schedule for Those Were the Days. So if you're thinking, I wonder what they're playing July 24th, look no further. There are also articles about radio, movies, music, entertainment in general. This current summer issue has articles about Charles Laughton and Dorothy Lamour, and the radio version of This Is Your Life, and classic movie monsters of the 1950s. And we've said this before, our subscribers make it possible for us to do what we do. So if you subscribe, we thank you. If you don't, you can learn more about the magazine and the radio show at nostalgiadigest.com. I'll hold this up a little closer. There we are. This is where you can hear past editions of Those Were the Days, including the show we did last week with Nat King Cole and Suspense and the Phil Harris Alice Faye show. It's where you can subscribe to Nostalgia Digest or get back issues. And it's where you can get old time radio shows on CD, including some of the shows you've heard excerpts from this evening. Now, obviously commercials were kind of a necessary evil in radio. If you wanted a big name star, someone had to shell out big money and they were going to want something in return. Thankfully, there were people who realized commercials didn't have to be evil. You know, there were some people who realized it would actually be to your advantage if you could make the commercials as entertaining as the rest of the program. And once again, Jack Benny was there in the lead. In fact, Jack's very first show in 1932, he was sponsored by Canada Dry. And he actually told the story about his girlfriend whose uncle had been to every night spot in New York. And now he was going north to drink Canada Dry. And yes, as some of you know, Jack and his writers got a lot better at this over time with the commercials they did for Jell-O and then later for Lucky Strike cigarettes. If you're of a certain age, you may remember LS, MFT. Lucky Strike means fine tobacco, a product of the American Tobacco Company. But Jack knew that if you were selling a product made by the American Tobacco Company, it would be great if you had the services of a great American songwriter.
Thank you very much. Goodbye, Mr. Goldwyn.
Well, Hoagie Carmichael.
Hello, Jack.
Gosh, Hoagie, here I am waiting to go into the office and you came out. I didn't know you were in there.
I've been in that Goldman's office since 10 o'clock this morning.
Since 10 o'clock this morning, eh? What were you doing in there all the time?
I was just trying to convince him that my name is Hoagie and not Hugo.
Oh, yes. That happened at the Academy Award ceremonies when Mr. Goldwyn accidentally called you Hugo instead of Hoagie, but it was just a slight mistake.
A slight mistake? Jack, for 25 years, I built up the name of Hoagie Carmichael, and it wasn't easy. I remember when I first started writing songs, I used to sit up nights, no food, hardly enough money to pay the rent. I was ready to quit, but my wife encouraged me. She said, Hoagie, you can do it. My mother encouraged me. She said, Hoagie, don't give up. My friends encouraged me, Hoagie, stick to it.
And they were right. I can remember those great songs. Stardust by Hoagie Carmichael. Lazy Bones by Hoagie Carmichael. Old Buttermilk Sky by Hoagie Carmichael. They were all great, Hoagie.
And who gets all the credit? Some no-talent jerk named Hugo.
Well, Hoagie, maybe I can help you.
Oh, I wish you would, Jack. All I am now is an unknown character with $1 million.
Whoops. Okay, I'll clear up your name for you. I've got a big listening audience, and if you want to come on my program and do one of your songs, I'll let everybody know it was written by Hoagie Carmichael, not Hugo.
Gosh, if you do that, I'd be very grateful, Jack. I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll sing Old Buttermilk Sky with a special arrangement that will include your quartet, The Sportsmen.
My quartet? No, I don't think that would...
What do you... Now, just a minute. I've got a copy of it right here. Let me show you what I mean. Try to visualize it, Jack.
What?
Well, here's the way it would go. The introduction starts with full orchestra. Old buttermilk sky, I'm a-keeping my eye peeled on you. What's a good word tonight? Are you gonna be mellow tonight?
Tonight, LSMFT. Glad to
cigarette for Donzi and we. We're as happy as a Christmas tree, heading for the one we love.
I'm going to pop her the question, that question.
Wouldn't you like a lucky strike?
Yes, it'll be easy, so easy.
Well, that's the one that she will like.
LSMFT.
LSMFT.
They won't fail you when you're needing them most.
Oh, no.
Hang a package on her hitching post.
Lucky's for the one you love, the one you love.
So round and so firm.
So round and so firm.
That's part of their churn.
That's part of their churn.
Will they be naturally mild tonight?
Yes, sir. Why, sure, you bet.
That's Lucky Strike. What do you think, Jack? Could you visualize what I'm telling you?
Could I? Hoagie, I could even hear the applause.
Wow.
That's a wonderful song. Hoagie, would you mind autographing that copy for me?
Oh, not at all.
Thanks.
So long, Jack.
So long. Gee, that was nice of Hoagie to... Well, what do you know? He signed it Hugo Carmichael.
Well, on behalf of everyone who made it possible for us to share these great sounds with you, all the songwriters and all the performers especially, I want to thank Mina and everyone at the Fresno Library for bringing us together this evening. Mina, thank you so much for your hospitality. To all of you, thank you for listening. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. And now I hope everybody agrees with me when I quote that you may not be able to relive the past, but every so often it's nice to revisit it. So, and Steve, when you ask about the singing along with that song, oh baby, you are the top and I'm the bottom.
That's right. Oh my, yes. Well, and of course, like I say, he left out the other 5 verses. We could have done the whole presentation about that song. So,
that was awesome, and I was laughing at myself.
Oh.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Very interesting. You brought back memories, and it's beautiful, especially the picture of this radio that you have on the screen. I remember seeing that. I don't know, it was my grandma's or somewhere, but yeah, I remember seeing those kind of equipments, radios. You are wonderful. You are the top.
Oh, you're very kind. Well,
and thank you so much. Hope to have you more for future programs. And thank you for everybody who participated. And I noticed that there is a chat. There is a
there is. Okay. Teresa, thank you. Yes, I see.
Teresa is. This was an amazing presentation. Thank you, and thank you, Teresa.
Yes, thank you
for participation. And I invite everybody to follow us on every Friday afternoon from now to the end of summer, end of July. No, I lied. August. August 6th is the end of our summer programs. And next week, we have Poetry of Rumi, where everything is music. Indulge in the spiritual passion of the 13th century Persian poet Rumi. Fred Paulman, a retired librarian, will recite Rumi's poems translated by Coleman Barks. next Friday, June 18 at 7 o'clock. Here you are. Please do register.
And this just goes to show what I was saying at the outset about all that libraries have been doing. Obviously, I'm sorry we can't all be together, although in my case, that would be quite a commute. But my goodness, the fact, yes, that we've gone from George Gershwin and Cole Porter to Rumi in 7 days, that's incredible. So thanks, Mina, to you and your colleagues for making all this happen. You know, it's incredible.
And thank you, everybody who is participating. And thank you, Steve.
Mina, thank you all. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me here, but hopefully we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Bye. Bye.